Beat. I'm April Cummings, and joining me is
Patrick Brindell.
from Caveman Current. And I do not know what episode this is, Patrick. I'm sorry.
13.
Episode 13, lucky 13. So today, there's been a lot going on. I say that every week, but there really has been a lot going on. We had a big press conference this week from the PACT government related to COVID. And one of the interesting things about that, as I like to say, is Patrick's beat is education. So he was really hoping to hear a little more about kind of what the plans are as we move through these phases toward reopening the borders. What did you hear about that, Patrick?
Well, I didn't hear the word education or schools at all in
You
the
did hear
90-minute press conference.
You did hear the word children, though. Children are very important. There was some discussion of that at the very beginning. But in terms of the education component of the discussion of the plans, that was not there this week. So it'll be, if I'm there next week, Patrick, I promise to ask how we're preparing our schools. A commitment from me.
Great. We might try to sneak someone in there as well.
That makes it
just
even
to
easier.
Make everybody nervous.
Yeah, but it's an important thing, right? So when we're talking about kids and school, you're also talking about parents in the community. And even though you may be watching this a few days from the day that we have shot it, overnight we got a report of something that might be a case of local transmission of COVID. We do not know as of this taping. That certainly does nothing to make parents, teachers, administrators feel comfortable. So now more than 2 days ago, we really would like to have some sense of, what the plans are with regard to schools and education and what kind of guidance is coming from our leadership about what to do, right? Because we have private schools and public schools, but everyone is really looking to public health officials and government to guide them.
Right. And it's in how to handle education in COVID it's not as simple. Like nobody's figured out exactly what the best practice is. There's no one blueprint. Every jurisdiction in the world, and then within those countries, things even at the city, county, or even school level, people have adopted different strategies depending on their particular circumstances. So what schooling during this second wave of COVID could look like could be totally at-home virtual learning. It could be mandatory vaccinations for staff and students above the age of 12. It could be mandatory masking. There could be alphabet system where half the kids are in school at a time. It could be social distancing practices. It could be hand washing. There could be almost daily, like regular testing with contact tracing. There could be mandatory periodic quarantines of people who came in contact with a positive COVID case. It could be all of these things. It could be none of these things. So we really won't know, as you said, until the government gives the guidance on not only what schools should do, but even this is what schools can do. Are the public and private schools going to operate in the same way, or are they going to leave it up to principals' discretion? Are they going to say, well, we'll let you know on a week-by-week basis? It's really all up in the air.
Very true. We have been on an ongoing basis, or at least the past few weeks, talking a great deal about the program that government announced, the PACT government announced, about feeding children in schools. And because we had the recent session of Finance Committee, which basically allows for the allocation of funds for things that are needed that maybe weren't in the original budgets, we got a clearer sense of what all that is going to cost. Can you talk a little bit about the bottom line on this and your thoughts?
Well, you know how much I love numbers. I'm married to an accountant, and that's why we get along so well. But I'll kind of stick to what they call the bottom line numbers. And there's two or three numbers that I think are the most important. And one is the annual cost of the school meal program they're running with an estimate of $16 million per year. And so that's to feed 5,200 public school students in primary and secondary, breakfast, lunch, and a snack. So we knew it was going to cost, I think everybody would assume it was going to cost several $1 million. So that several turns out to be $16 million per year. And I actually, on the current, because I like breaking down numbers, I broke out the per day cost per student, which is a pretty simple calculation. You start out with 5,200 students, you divide it by 185 teaching days, and with the $16 million cost, so the cost per student per day is $16.60 to make sure that they're fed. And as the government stressed, and I think rightfully so, this is a brand new program. They're going to learn as they go along. And so these numbers are, I don't want to say fuzzy, but these are tentative estimates, and they really won't know how many meals they'll be providing to how many kids, because a lot of kids will still want to bring food from home for sure. And so they, these are just working, numbers that they're working with. In terms of what they actually allocated, so they requested $3.1 million for this semester. So to the end of this calendar year, they've started serving these free school meals at the primary schools and at Lighthouse School. And the reason Lighthouse School is included is because they have primary and secondary students. So it'd be kind of hard to turn away half the kids who are hungry. And the other data point is one I mentioned it before and I kind of glossed over, but the education minister, Juliana O'Connor-Connolly, said that this year's public school student population is 5,200 students. Mm-hmm. And that jumped out to me because I had just written a story analyzing the number of kids in the public school system. And so 5,200 is an 11% increase over last year's student body population. And during the hearing, Ms. O'Connor-Connolly attributed the growth in the public schools population to recent positive inspection results. So John Gray getting a good, et cetera. So, maybe the public school system has become more attractive to local parents. And then you also have to think about the corresponding economic pressures from COVID, meaning some parents may not be able to afford to send their kids to private school, or if they feel that the quality is comparable, they'd rather use that money elsewhere. Of course,
we did run a story because we at Radio Command, we will go back and revisit the different. Basically, we'll take Finance Committee and try as best we can to go through item by item, even over the course of days and weeks, and just pull each of these areas together, really just to give people a chance to process it over time. And I did find this very intriguing. Good news is public schools are attracting more people. Bad news is more pressure on the infrastructure for public schools. And so there was a discussion of allocation for private schools to help them because they don't want them to close because they don't have sufficient enrollment necessarily. But at the same time, they're discussing whether there's a need to build more public primary schools as well. And so I think there's definitely something to watch, that balance between the two things, because you do want choices for your children in a country. You don't want only one option, but the economics of that in a small community can be challenging. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead, Patrick. Forgive.
No, that's totally right. And, when people talk about the private school's role in Cayman is, I think it's like 45% of students are going to private school. And you compare that to the UK or the US where it's low single digits. Over the decades, private schools have become such, they become part of the public service component or the public good component of delivering education. And you mentioned the allocation to private schools, and people talk about this a lot. Well, the number is $1 million. Mm-hmm. So the government is providing $1 million to private schools, basically to help them do better. Some of them do better on their inspection reports to kind of help them through issues caused by COVID. So in the context of the entire education budget, which I believe is $100 million, a million of that, 1% of that is going to the private schools. And, of course, you can have this, very valid discussion on whether the private school should be 100% privately funded or not.
Right.
But in terms of a government budget, that number is quite small.
Yeah, and there are a number of private schools in the Cayman Islands. All right, Patrick, I know we have a tight window today. Is there anything else that you want us to hit on before we wrap things up for the day?
Of course. So one of the things we've been doing is there was a big kerfuffle in the spring around Red Bay Primary School.
Yep.
Involving allegations involving staff members that, for various reasons we've discussed, I haven't, and I don't think you haven't reported the nature of the allegations or who's involved, but other media have. So they launched a police investigation in conjunction with Children and Family Services in May. So May 7th. So 4 months later, the investigation is still ongoing. And Red Bay Primary opened the year with with an acting principal, Ryan Dale, who's acting in place of the longtime principal, Vicki Frederick. So this is kind of our monthly or every couple months update on the Red Bay situation, and we'll keep an eye on it, and until it's resolved.
Yeah, because there are some unanswered questions that I think parents would like answers to.
And then I guess the last thing is, this is cause for celebration, is the one of the first phases of the new John Gray High School has been finished.
Yeah.
And has been they call the officially handing over from the ministry to the department, which means students can use it. And so that must be really exciting for these kids, because, they and the teachers and the parents, because they've been waiting a long time for what should be a really impressive building to open. And so I'm checking my notes. The first phase includes TVET, so technical vocational education workshops, robotics lab, clothing, textiles, etc., and a new performing arts center. So some of the cool stuff is open.
Yeah. I'm hoping that between us we can get Principal John Clark on, because he has been, through this process, really excited about, what this is going to provide for the students. I mean, look, everybody likes shiny new, but shiny new that you've had student, teachers, community, government, stakeholders kind of all involved in the development of. Look, it is exciting to see some of that come to life, right? So I'm really excited for us to get the chance to chat with him about it. And I did get busy because, news, it eats a lot of your world. But I also will continue my efforts to stalk Mark Ray and invite him on as well, because I think it would be great to hear from him. It's just every time I turn around, there's a new thing happening. And I'm like, man, we need more hours in the day.
Yeah, and I did get a response back from Mr. Ray to my request for an interview, and he said, sounds good. He's super busy. It's the beginning of the school year, and he's in a new position. And I said, that's terrible. No, I totally understand. As a parent, I really enjoy handing all my children over and saying, it's your job now, teachers.
Take them. Take them.
But as an education journalist, this is also a really busy time of year for me too. So
it really is. So, and it's good to have a little bit of time to kind of get your feet wet and see what's going on. But from my side of the universe, I'm not empty nest yet. I still have one child in school, and even more questions every year. New questions. Sorry, I need my tea.
Yeah, tea.
Tea. See, you can't see through it, so no one will ever know what's in there. It doesn't matter whether your kids are 2 or whether they're 22. There are always questions about the education system, how things are working, how to do things better. I just think that the work of Cayman Current is so important to society. See, Patrick? You can glow now. You can put your halo on. But it's really good. And by the way, I did pop up your screen a bit earlier. I just, before we wrap it up, we have literally 2 minutes to go. We're trying to act like I can follow a deadline. Remember that Cayman Current is a nonprofit and therefore always, always looking for your support. Read it, but also you can donate as well. Look, here I have a picture of the Cayman Current on the screen. It's not the best picture because I don't know how to scroll, but every week and sometimes multiple times a week, Patrick is constantly posting stuff on here that's going to be of interest to you, both as the curator of content around education, but also as a journalist. So shout out to you, Patrick. Everybody join us next week. I would say same time, same place, but it's really same place. Time will one day be consistent about. We're not there yet. Did I turn us off? No, I didn't turn us off yet. All right, final words, 60 seconds to go.
Well, thanks, April, and thanks everybody for watching. Watch Cayman Life TV, visit their website. The work April's doing is also really important. So,
yeah, which means interviewing Patrick about his work, which is good. All right, guys, have a great week, everybody. And we will keep you informed and up to date as things progress. Patrick, thanks again, and we'll see you all next time.